Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And it is beautiful in Indianapolis today. It is sunny, and the little animals are running around all over the place, and it is so nice outside today. And so it's the last day of April, and I thought, let's end April on a good note. Let's read some meditations. Let's go out peacefully, and then we can start May on a good note as well. I'm so excited for May. May is the opening of the pool. May is sitting on the front porch every day, and I am so excited that May is here. Made it through the winter of our discontent, and now it is spring outside. Summer is right around the corner. So, to end April, let's read some meditations. I brought the Melody Beatty books out with me today. I have no idea what the meditations are, so let me look in here really quick. April 30th, let's see what they are on each of the books. Unless I get to the one in here first, and I really like it. Let's see what it says. April 30th. Balance. Oh, balance is a good meditation. Let's see what the one was the day before. Initiating relationships, anger at family members, letting go of the need to control, resisting negativity, okay, and finding our own truth. That was the last one that I read. Resisting negativity. Let's see. How about anger at family members? I think that might be a good one to read. Should we read that one today? Okay. Anger at family members, and this is from April 28th. Many of us have anger towards certain members of our family. Some of us have much anger and rage, anger that seems to go on year after year. For many of us, anger was the only way to break an unhealthy bondage or connection between a family member and ourselves. It was a force that kept us from being held captive, mentally, emotionally, and sometimes spiritually, by certain family members. It is important to allow ourselves to feel, to accept our anger toward family members without casting guilt or shame on ourselves. It is also important to examine our guilty feelings concerning family members, as anger and guilt are often intertwined. We can accept, even thank our anger for protecting us, but we can also set another goal, taking our freedom. Once we do, we will not need our anger. Once we do, we can achieve forgiveness. Think loving thoughts, think healing thoughts towards family members, but let ourselves be as angry as we need to be. At some point, strive to be done with the anger, but we need to be gentle with ourselves as the feelings surface from time to time. Thank God for the feelings, feel them, release them. Ask God to bless and care for our families. Ask God to help us take freedom and take care of ourselves. Let the golden light of healing shine upon all we love and upon all with whom we feel anger. Let the golden light of healing shine on us. Trust that a healing is taking place now. Help me accept the potent emotions I may feel toward family members. Help me be grateful for the lesson they are teaching me. I accept the golden light of healing that is now shining on me and my family. I thank God that healing does not always come in a neat, tidy package. Wow. Interesting meditation. So, as many of you know, I have a very small family. I'm an only child. So when I was growing up, it was my mom, and then my dad and my stepmom on the other side. And then on my mom's side, it's my cousin Caroline, my aunt, and my uncle, who have since passed. And now it's my cousin Caroline and her husband and her son and their stepson. So I've had a very small family my whole life. On my dad's side, he's the youngest of 5. But he is from northern Indiana, and so I know my aunts and uncles and cousins. Many of them have passed at this point, but I know them, but I wasn't as close to them as I was with my mom's side of the family because they were here in Indianapolis. And now I have this extended family with my husband Alex. You know, I have my mother-in-law, and I have my 2 brothers-in-law and my 2 sisters-in-law, which I am so incredibly grateful for. You know, it's interesting, this conversation of anger towards family members, because I have to say it's one thing that I haven't really experienced tons in my life. I mean, a little bit from here and there throughout my life. I think probably the closest for me was in feeling anger towards my mother and her drinking and things like that, you know? I think there was always a part of me, though, that knew that my mom, like, even though I didn't have the words to it, like when I was living it, I knew that my mom was not well. You know, I think one of the most important things I've ever heard since I've got sober is that we're not bad people trying to get good, we're sick people trying to get well. I kind of always knew, even as a kid with my mom's drinking, that she was a sick person. So in some ways, it wasn't that I could excuse it, it was that I could make sense of it. Even though it frustrated me and it made me angry and it made me scared, I could still make sense of it to some degree. You know, and with my in-laws, like, I don't know that I've ever, like, witnessed an argument or a fight with them. I mean, disagreements, yeah. I mean, we played an Uno game one year and, like, it got out of control and it was hilarious, but not, like, a real argument, you know? And they're just so loving. And I say this a lot in my videos because, you know, I hear people make jokes from time to time about their, like, in-laws, or they'll say, like, oh, God, I have to, like, go hang out with my in-laws. Like, I love to hang out with my in-laws. I feel blessed to have the mother-in-law that I do. Like, I don't know, she came, you know, into my life 6 to 8 months after my mom had passed away, and really kind of, to some degree, stepped into that role, even though she's not my mother's age, you know? And, I mean, my mother-in-law is, like, I mean, she wasn't my mother's age whatsoever, and she's always been so tender and so gentle and so loving, but also very honest and direct with me. And I think that one of the things that has been so fantastic, I didn't think I'd go in talking about our relationship, my relationship with my mother-in-law, but one of the things that's always been so fantastic between us is that, like, if she's ever been uncertain about something or wanted to know, like, how I thought about something or whatever, like, she would bring it to me. And one of the things that I've always done is, like, I would bring it right to her, you know? And I can remember, just a small example, years ago, she asked me to help her with something. I mean, this was like 10 years ago, right? And so I showed up there, and I was like 20 minutes late. I can remember I had a lot of stuff going on that day, but that was no excuse. I was running like 20 minutes late. I had messaged her. I was like, I'm running 20 minutes late. She's like, I understand. And so I got there, and when I got there, she had like laid out all this stuff. Like, she had like prepared for it. Like, she had laid out this food, and she was excited about me coming over, and we were gonna like brainstorm some ideas for her and stuff like that. And I'll never forget, she said to me, she said, can I say something to you before we get started? And I said, yeah, sure. And she said, you know, she said, when you're late, it makes me feel like my time isn't valuable to you and things like that. And this was a time in my life when I was late to a lot of things. And I've since, like, really, like, that's one of my big issues I've worked on, and I'm not late to anything really anymore, right? And so, and she was like, I just want you to know, she's like, I'm not mad about it, I'm not angry about it. She's like, but next time, it would mean a lot to me if you showed up on time, you know? I think that's probably the only time we've ever, like, had any conflict between, you know, she and I. And, you know, one of the things is, like, anytime I've ever, like, had a question, like, I'll, like, to Alex, be like, well, what's your mom doing about this, or what's your mom's doing about that? Because I will tell you, likewise, I've taken over the role with her that I did with my own mom. Like, I'm very concerned always about her. I've always let her know, like, listen, as long as, like, you know, we're here, you never have anything to worry about. I always want you to know, like, we've got your back, we're taking care of you and stuff like that, you know? I love her so much. I always say, like, I feel like I got the best mother-in-law in the entire world. And like I was going to say this earlier, one of the reasons why I say that is I hear a lot of people joke about, oh, I have to go hang out with my in-laws, and oh my God, my mother-in-law. And I never feel that way. I feel like they're a blessing in my life. In fact, I've said this, I think maybe in my vlog, but I've definitely told them this, that, you know, I feel like my mom almost gave them to me. Like, you know, she like made all the stars align so that they came into my life, and I feel so blessed to have them. I will tell you one thing that was so helpful, though, with my relationship and building a very strong relationship with my mother-in-law, is that, like, any questions I've ever had through the years, Alex will say, I don't know, you call her and text her. Like, you go to her, don't put me in the middle. I don't want to get in the middle of all this, right? And so he never has been. And so, like, if I've been worried about her, I'll text her and be like, hey, like, I'm worried about you, I haven't heard about you, anything, is like, are you okay? And whatever, and she'll respond to me. And so she and I have a relationship outside of, like, me being with Alex and that relationship. And I think that's really, really important. And, you know, I think that's one thing I learned in early sobriety, was cleaning up my side of the street and always going to somebody when I have issues, you know? Like, if I've had, I think one of the reasons why I don't have a lot of conflict in my personal life today, and I have had periods where I've had a lot of conflict, not just with family, but like with friends. I mean, I really like haven't had a lot of conflict. Nobody in my family is like, nobody's ever been big fighters, you know? Like, my mom and I were very much like, we might like scream at each other and then 5 minutes later be hugging and making up, but like, it was never anything that carried on for days on end. I've never really witnessed that. I didn't come from that kind of family. You know, even my parents, like, I can remember like maybe once or twice when they like raised voices before they got separated, and one of those nights was the night that I remember my dad moving out. But other than that, like, I don't really remember any arguments. There was like one after that occurred too, but other than that, like, I don't remember my parents really arguing with each other or fighting. And I think that they were very protective of me, of that when I was growing up as a kid, which I think is important. Like, kids I don't think need to see that. And then my family, like, either all of my family, my dad's side of his family, you know, my mom's side of her family, my in-laws, nobody really fights or argues, you know? But, like, if there's an issue or a misunderstanding, you take it to that person. And I think that's one thing that's, like, really alleviated a lot of that. I do have a lot of friends of mine that have a lot of, like, family in their life that, you know, like, they don't get along with and whatever. And, you know, it's always interesting to me because they'll always be worried about holidays. They'll be like, I have to get together, you know, go to this person's house for a holiday, but, like, I know so-and-so is going to be there and I really don't want to see them. And to me, it's like, I think because I have such a small family, like, when I came out, this term, there was family of origin, which is the family that you're born into, and then there was this family of choice. And I remember, like, that term was being used a lot when I came out, this family of choice, that you get to pick who your family is. And that was very, very important to me when I came out, because I had a lot of people in my life that played the roles of brother, sister, mother, father, things like that, right? Aunt, uncle, like, I had a lot of those people in my life when I came out. And then when I got sober again, it was the same thing, you know, like, my best friend, Tanya Jean, is very much like an older sister to me, you know? Her husband is very much like a kind of like an uncle type to me, and is, like, very fatherly to me and things like that, you know? And so I have, like, through the years picked up different kinds of family type roles. And, you know, so, like, when people say, like, I don't want to go to this thing, like, for me, it's like, well, then just don't talk to them when you go there, right? Whenever I talk about setting boundaries and limits with family members, people always say, well, I can't set a boundary limit with this person because they're my mother or whatever. I set boundary limits with my mother. I told my mother, if you continue to drink, I can't see you, you know, because I'm sober now and things like that. And didn't see my mom for a very long time, right? And that was hard. It wasn't something that was just like, oh, I'm not going to see you because you continue to drink and I don't drink anymore. It was hard. That was really a difficult thing for me to do. Very difficult, you know? But it was important for me. And I think that one of the things I learned at that time when I first got sober, and I've struggled with this my whole life, was I have to love myself first before I can love somebody else. Like, it was like on the back of my coin when I got sober and I got out of treatment, the back of my coin said, you must first be of value to yourself before you can be of value to somebody else. Well, being of value to myself means that I stick up for myself. I set boundaries and limits with toxic and negative people in my life. I don't allow that in my life. It doesn't mean that at 22 and a half, almost 23, when I got sober, I learned that immediately. It took me years to learn that. It took me years to set boundaries. It's actually easier for me to set boundaries with family members than it is to set boundaries with friends and people in my life, because I think for a long time I sought validation for those people. It's one of the reasons why I keep my circle very small today. I have quality people in my life. And so when somebody comes to me and they say something, I know that they're not saying it to me out of anger or negativity or toxicity. They're saying it to me because they love me and they care. I know that about the people in my life today. That's a huge thing to know that. I'm not sitting there going, why is this person attacking me? I know that person loves me, so I know it's not an attack and they're saying it to me because they love me. I don't have people in my life today, in my personal life, that attack me. I just don't. Period. End of story. If you're somebody that, like, comes at me or is real negative consistently to me or very toxic, you're not in my life today. I don't have time for that. Life's too short and it's too precious, and I'm not wasting my time on that. So if I had a family member, and yes, I do feel this way, if I had a family member that was in my life that was that negative to me, and I don't care if that person was my mother, my father, my grandparents, my aunt, my uncle, they wouldn't be in my life. That doesn't mean I just write them off. I would go and have a conversation with them, because that's how I deal with things in my personal life today, is I have conversations with people. And I say, hey, listen, you know, some of these things that you're saying to me really hurt my feelings. I've had to have conversations with people in my life like that. They just weren't family. But they were almost like family, because I was talking to them every day. I was talking to them more than I talked to some of my family, you know? Just because you're blood with somebody doesn't mean that. I don't understand that whole concept of, you know, you have this ability that you have to. You know, like, I had somebody reach out to me the other day and talk to me about, like, I don't know how to set, you know, boundaries with my family members. You have to. You can't take care of anybody else, and you can't take care of yourself if you don't set boundaries for negativity and toxicity in your life with your family members, your best friend, whoever, your spouse. You have to have boundaries with your spouse, you know? Period. End of story. You have to have personal boundaries with yourself and everybody. It's not just a family thing. It's not just a friend thing. It's not just a partner thing. It's everybody. Your kids, your neighbors, everybody, you know? Let me give you an example of a boundary that is always interesting to me. So back in the day when, like, we would all go over to Tanya's house, the tripod fell right when I was getting into my story. So years and years and years ago, you know, like, Tanya's house was always like a hub for everybody that would like stop there after meetings or stop there throughout the day and whatever. And whenever I would go to Tanya's house, I would not, I still do to this day, always knock on the door, always ring the doorbell. I don't ever just like walk on in. I think that's one of the rudest things. I literally think that what that says, even if that person has an open door policy, and I know like in small towns and whatever, but like even to like knock on the door and be like, hey, I'm here, if that person's expecting you, that's one thing, to knock on the door and be like, hey, I'm here. But just to walk on in like you own that home, that's like, to me, like people ask me all the time about pet peeves and whatever, like that to me is like a level of disrespect. Like you always let somebody know that you're there. You don't know if they're in their home or what's going on. You don't know, right? So I always knock on the door before I walk into somebody's house. Even if like the door is open, it's like their screen door, I'll be like, hey, we're here, can we come in? I always am like that, right? Well, people would walk in and out of her house all the time. And I can remember I was friends with this gal that she and I were about the same age, and she would do it all the time. I mean, like all hours of the day, right? And just walk into Tanya's house and whatever. And I finally said something to her. Tanya never said anything about it. She never said anything about it. But I finally said to her, I said, it is so disrespectful that you just walk into her house. You never knock, you never announce yourself or whatever. She's like, Tanya doesn't care, Tanya. I said, maybe Tanya doesn't feel comfortable saying anything to you, but this is her home. Like, do you just walk in anywhere? And she's like, yeah, I just walk in anywhere. I said, that is such a sense of entitlement. Like, people have boundaries. You need to respect people's boundaries. It's like when people get real close to you, it's like, I shouldn't have to tell you that I have personal space. You should know that I have personal space. I'm respecting your personal space. Don't step into my personal space. I cannot stand that when people get real close to me. In fact, I used to kind of just take a step back and not say anything. Now what I do is I put my hand up and I step back. Like, you're too close. I don't want you that close in my life. I don't need you unless you're my best friend and we're on whispering terms, in my ear whisper. I don't need that, right? Like, I am a person that really is about boundaries, personal boundaries, space boundaries, house boundaries. I wouldn't want somebody just walking into my house, period, end of story. I wouldn't. I wouldn't want anybody just walking into my house, and that's why I don't do that to other people. I think it's rude. I think it's disrespectful. I think it's about respecting people's boundaries and they're respecting yours. And people will respect your boundaries when you set your boundaries. And whether that's a family member or a friend, or whether that boundary is coming into your house or how they speak to you. You know, I talk a lot about this in my videos, that I don't let people speak to me just any way they want today in my life. You know, I allowed that stuff for a very, very long time. People would say stuff to me. People would talk to me in the most horrendous ways. I don't allow that anymore. And in fact, I don't just walk away. I say something about it today. You know, maybe if it's, you know, somebody that just, I don't even know, that's shouting something at me, that's one thing, right? But if it's somebody in my life that says something to me, which this rarely ever happens, but when it does, I'm like, what? I mean, I learned this years ago from a friend of mine that said, you know, like, you must not think very highly of me to think it's okay to speak to me that way. I don't allow myself, that's one of my big boundaries, okay, in my personal life. You're not going to speak to me disrespectfully. I don't speak to people disrespectfully. You're not going to speak to me disrespectfully in my personal life, period. I don't want people walking in my doors. I don't want people coming up on me. And I don't want people speaking to me disrespectfully. Those are my boundaries. If you violate those boundaries, that you will not be in my life. Does that mean that we cannot coexist at the same party or holiday? No. I can sit down at one end of the table and you can sit down at the other end of the table. We don't have to speak to each other. We can be civil to each other. Hey, how are you? It's good to see you. You know? That's how I can be respectful. Even to somebody that's disrespectful to me. I don't have to keep the fight going. I don't have to keep the resentment going. I don't have to keep the anger going and the misery. I can take it in, say my piece, and let it go. If that person doesn't want to hear it and receive it, that's on them. But I go to people and I say things like, I don't really appreciate the way that you said this to me, and that kind of hurt my feelings, and now I'm not comfortable going to Christmas. If somebody said to me, this has never happened to me, but if somebody said something like, well, that's on you, I don't really care. I would either call that person and say, like, I don't think I can show up for Christmas because this person's going to be there and they were so disrespectful to me when I approached them. Or I would say, please seat us far as possible. And then I would show up and I would just keep my distance and keep it moving. But I'm not going to avoid 10 other people, you know, unless I absolutely felt that way. Felt like I couldn't show up there. You know, I'm not, in my life today at 51, I'm not about making a stand. But I'm also not like, this has happened to me a couple times in my life where I have gone to people and I've said, like, you know, like, what you said to me really hurt my feelings. And then they kind of like play it off like, why are you being so like sensitive about this? You're telling me what I can choose to be sensitive about when it pertains to me. Now that you don't have that right. Okay, that's another boundary I set, right? And then they'll kind of play it off, and then like, you know, like 3 months later at like some random thing, you know, like over at, I don't know, somebody's cookout or whatever, they'll want to come up to me and be like, hey, I'm so sorry about what happened between us. We're good, right? Well, for years I would say to that person, yeah, we're good, because I would just want to let it go. I didn't like confrontation. I didn't like any of that stuff. Yeah, we're good. We're totally good, right? Oh, good. I thought we were good, right? And then 2 weeks later, we're at something else, and they're doing the same shit. I don't tolerate that today. When that person wants to come up to me 3 months later and be like, oh yeah, we're good, right? We're good. I'm like, well, I never really got an apology from you, and I don't even really need an apology. What I need is acknowledgement that you heard what I said. Well, what are you talking about? Like, I thought we were good. We can be good, but I need you to acknowledge that I don't want to be spoken to that way. Can you acknowledge that? Oh, dude, I thought we were... No, I need you to acknowledge that, or we're not going to be good. And don't be coming up here and hitting my shoulder and acting like we're all cool, right? Like, we don't play that game. I did not get this sober and this far in my life, and it doesn't even matter if you're sober or not, okay? You did not get to where you got in your life to be a doormat. Nobody did. Period, end of story. Right? The reason that you set boundaries in your life is because you respect yourself and you love yourself. Listen, I didn't get this far in my life to be a doormat to anybody. Period. End of story. I'm not. You know? And maybe that means I keep my circle a little bit small. And I'm totally fine with that. I'd rather know where I stand with a few than question where I stand with a lot. You know? I'd rather know who my real friends are and who's really got my back, that I can call at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm really struggling with something, than try to reach out to people like I did for years that I thought we were good and we weren't really good, you know? And sometimes, like it said, like this is a sign, like it said in this meditation, that anger is a sign. Sometimes, like these happenings that happen, let me know exactly where I stand with somebody, and that's good, you know? And like I said, I don't really have a lot of this today in my life because I have limited my group. My group is so small, you know? My family is like my dad, my stepmom, my cousin's family, and my in-laws, you know? It's not like we have this huge family and nobody fights. My close friends in my life today, we don't argue like this. If we have misunderstanding, we take it to that person and we work it out. We work it out until it's worked out. We don't just go, okay, we're going to have to agree to disagree. No, we work it out. Why is it important to you that I hear this? Why is it important to you that you feel this way? Explain to me where you're coming from. Let's respect one another. Let's hear one another. We work it out. The friendship means more to us than the argument. The relationship means more to us than that. I don't have people in my life today that do not align with my belief system and my principles. I just don't. That's something I let go of a long time ago. And I know to a lot of people, they're like, well, what does that mean? Well, that means the things that are core principles to me in my life, that if you have adverse principles to that, I can't have you in my life. And that's not an opinion thing. That's that you choose to live your life believing that this person's wrong for being here on this earth and this person shouldn't have these rights. And I don't have those people in my life today. The people that are in my life today are like-minded people that come from a loving, compassionate point of view, you know, and I set boundaries in my life today with all people in my life, you know, and I respect other people's boundaries, you know, to the point where I know when my neighbors go to sleep, you know, like our neighbor across the street, they left their garage door open one time, and she and I next door were like, well, we know they go to bed early, and I didn't want to like ring their doorbell and let them know that, and she's like, should I run inside and close the doorbell? And I go, well, I don't know that they would like that, so let's just, I'll keep a watch on it. She gets up early, I stay up late, and so we watched it the next day. We told them, she's like, oh my God, they were like, thank you so much, and I said, what should I do next time? You can ask those questions, right? And she goes, what, if we're asleep or if it's late? Because it was like, I don't know what time it was. I think I was vlogging when I talked about it. And I said, yeah, like, what should we do next time? And she said, you can just run in and close it for us. That would mean a lot to us. And I said, okay. And then I know. See, that's a boundary. You can ask people what their boundaries are. And that's just a solid example. You can ask people what their boundaries are. It's like, hey, is my joke too offensive? Like, I don't want to joke with you if it's offensive. I don't want to, you know, like, well, what word should I use? You know, those are all boundaries. You can ask people what their boundaries are. You can set boundaries for yourself. You have that right. Don't allow yourself to be a doormat. Don't allow people to just talk any way that they want to talk to you. I've been more hurt by language and words that people have said to me by anything else in my life. So it's important for me to set boundaries with how people speak to me. And it's important that you set boundaries with how people speak to you too. And that you respect people's boundaries when they tell you how they want to be spoken to as well. It's a two-way street, you know? the saying of like, well, I don't give respect until I get respect. I will quickly give somebody respect first. Period, end of story, all day long. But if I do, then give it back to me, please, in return. You know? Like, let's just have a mutually respectful relationship. And everything's good, you know? So anyway, let me know what you think about that meditation in the comment section below. It's the end of April. We're going into May. It's going to be a great May. Great end of spring and beginning of summer. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.